Let's dive right into this fascinating explainer. If you follow comedy, you know that analyzing a stand-up set is honestly a lot like dissecting a magic trick. You've got to look way past that immediate shock value to actually see the structural mechanics underneath. So today, we are going to look at this wildly chaotic, totally stream of consciousness routine from the YouTube channel Dr. Hawk. It is messy, it's incredibly explicit, and it completely shatters social norms. But by breaking it down, we can figure out exactly how this specific brand of transgressive shock comedy actually functions and why it commands an audience's attention the way it does.
To make sense of this deeply erratic and taboo-heavy source material, we're going to break the comedian's disparate jokes into 5 distinct themes. We've got the stand-up persona, cultural taboos and identity, absurdist political commentary, the anatomy of shock comedy, and finally, wearable tech stereotypes. Let's track the wildly unpredictable leaps he makes.
Okay, Section 1, the stand-up persona, establishing the unconventional doctor. Let's see how he sets up a jarring contrast right out of the gate.
He anchors his entire set by making sure we know he is an actual practicing medical doctor. Now, why does that matter? Well, think about it. A doctor represents authority, right? Cleanliness, trust. By establishing this very professional baseline, he basically ensures that the grotesque, absurd jokes he's about to unleash are exponentially more shocking. Then, he grounds this shock in some very real-world stakes. He highlights the extreme cultural juxtaposition within his background. On one hand, being a doctor in Pakistani and Indian families is massively celebrated. But on the other hand, being gay is so highly taboo that it actually comes with severe, even fatal physical dangers in Pakistan, like beheading. By starting with these heavy, literal life-or-death realities, he hooks us in before taking a massive, hard left turn straight into the absurd.
Which brings us to Section 2, Cultural Taboos and Identity, Redefining Human Sexuality. This is where his stream of consciousness really accelerates.
He abruptly pivots away from those genuine cultural dangers and goes straight into this bizarre, supposedly universal theory on human identity, flat out declaring we are all technically bisexuals. And his pseudo-logic for this? He argues that the act of self-pleasure inherently means you are attracted to your own gender. It's this wild linguistic trap that forces the entire audience into his taboo framework, completely leveling the playing field.
And without giving anyone even a second to recover from that, he shifts to full-on bestiality shock humor. He actually cites a timeline of bizarre, highly explicit news stories from Vegas to Florida, involving women and dogs and, you guessed it, peanut butter. But pay close attention to how he actually lands this joke. Maintaining that totally detached clinical doctor persona, his punchline completely ignores the horrifying nature of those stories. Instead, he zeroes in on a dietary restriction, just casually noting, neither of them had peanut allergy, I guess. That deliberate misplacement of concern, that is absolute textbook transgressive comedy. He's generating laughs through total emotional detachment.
Now you might be wondering, how on earth does he leap from shock animal humor to criticizing world leaders? Well, he doesn't do it logically, that's for sure. He uses this incredibly disjointed, chaotic segue where he suddenly starts talking about the nursery rhyme, Wheels on the Bus, claiming it's actually political theater. It makes absolutely no sense, but it serves as the perfect chaotic bridge.
Let's move into Section 3, Absurdist Political Commentary, the simp theory. Here we have to look impartially at his highly specific, and let's face it, entirely bizarre categorization of global leaders.
He lays out this politically charged thesis, bluntly stating, I guess all the Democrat presidents are simps. Notice how he completely ignores any traditional political critique. There's zero mention of taxes or foreign policy or legislation. Instead, he bypasses all of that just to attack their perceived domestic masculinity. It's a hyper-personalized, utterly absurd metric for judging world leaders.
He names very specific targets here, Joe and Jill Biden, even claiming Jill could physically beat Joe up, along with the Clintons, the Obamas, and French President Emmanuel Macron. He claims these figures secretly participate in this submissive, underground fight club behind closed doors. It is a completely fictional premise that drags the highest offices of power into a ridiculous comedic narrative.
And this brilliantly illustrates his method. He takes a fragmented real-world event, like Emmanuel Macron getting publicly slapped, and completely weaponizes it for the joke. He cites that incident as actual proof of this global political fight club, completely blurring the lines between international news and his own stream of consciousness fiction.
So, moving on to Section 4, Anatomy of Shock Comedy, the Mechanics of Misdirection. This is an absolutely crucial point in our explainer. How exactly does a comedian build a joke that is meant to actively deceive the listener?
Well, he introduces the acronym ATM. Now, given the severely boundary-pushing set so far, the audience immediately assumes the highly graphic sexual definition, and he leans so heavily into this assumption.
He spends an extensive amount of time detailing this incredibly graphic setup. He says she can really taste her own shit, and that's the parameter of true love, and even invents a fictional endorsement from Tiger Woods to heighten the surrealism. He builds maximum tension, making the room as uncomfortable as possible, and then he just pulls the rug out. He feigns absolute shock, acting deeply offended that the audience didn't realize he was talking about a standard automated teller cash machine the whole time. The real humor here isn't just the dirty words, it's the trap he masterfully set for the audience's own dirty minds.
Finally, Section 5, Wearable Tech Stereotypes, the Observational Closer. The routine completely shifts gears in its final moments toward what initially sounds like standard observational comedy.
But, true to form, he takes a totally mundane topic and injects it with explicit absurdity. Instead of comparing, battery life between an Apple Watch and a Fitbit, he creates these outrageous sexual stereotypes based entirely on a device's fitness tracking capabilities. He claims the Apple Watch is hard to wear and look like you perform conventional oral sex well, while the Fitbit is for guys tracking calories during, anal oral sex. It's a completely baseless, ridiculous correlation, but he delivers it with total, unwavering confidence.
As we wrap up this explainer, looking back at the sheer ground covered, from the real dangers of coming out in Pakistan to peanut allergies, political fight clubs, and fitness trackers, we really have to ask ourselves something. Does breaking every single traditional rule of comedy actually create a more memorable, albeit transgressive experience for the listener? By stripping away polite conventions, he leaves a jarring, undeniable impression. So what do you think? Is the ultimate goal of comedy to make us comfortable, or to forcefully remind us of the boundaries we've built in our own minds?